Struggling until the age of 30.8, one cannot afford a house. To get married, one must first pay a dowry of 300,000 yuan, save half of one's life, and even break one's liver. But what about money? Who exactly made the money? With countless grievances, Jiang Qin was reborn at the age of 18, and his only thought when he opened his eyes was to start a business and make money. The first step is to retrieve the love letter that was sent out, flip it over, and write 3 lines in the surprised eyes of the school flower. You can't work for anything. If you can work with a rich woman, you can work with her. You can earn more when you run out of money, but you can earn more when you run out of conscience. Social animals, never be slaves. As for love, don't even talk about that dog thing. Keywords of the novel. Who is born again in love? No pop-ups. Who is born again in love? Download the full text. Who is born again in love? Latest chapter reading. What about money in chapter 1? Where's my money? You are listening at novelfull.audio. What about money in chapter 1? Where's my money? The dowry is 300,000 yuan, not a penny can be reduced. I don't care about money, I just want to know how important I am to you. Also, your apartment cannot have your mother's name written on it, it needs to be transferred to my name. Deep City, the window seat of Grey Whale Cafe. 38-year-old Jiang Qin looked at her marriage partner in front of her and suddenly felt that her face was somewhat unfamiliar. They met through blind dates and have been together for more than half a year. As they are not young anymore, they don't have time to drag on any longer, so they have been discussing getting married recently. To be honest, Jiang Qin doesn't have much affection for her, and he believes that the other person has similar thoughts. After all, at the age of 4, is it still for love to get married and have children? I just don't want Dugu to end his old age, right? However, he didn't speak, but silently drank the water from his cup and looked out of the glass window, his ears automatically blocking the other person's voice. He thinks that life is actually quite a damn thing. Because his parents said that knowledge changes destiny, he has been studying hard since he was young, thinking that in the future, he will definitely be either rich or noble, extraordinary. But it wasn't until after work that he realized he couldn't even be considered an ordinary person. In early 2016, when he entered the workplace, he was filled with customers and drank alcohol. He went to the hospital, but couldn't see his grandmother who had raised him for the last time. In 2019, the project was hit by lightning, and he was forced to take the blame. He spent 5 months eating instant noodles in a rental room, unable to distinguish between his dreams and reality. The later job was relatively stable, but it was far from his place of residence. His liver was broken and he worked so hard that he even saved up urine twice just to buy a car. In 22 years, he finally bought a car, but found that he couldn't afford to refuel and couldn't urinate completely. After the age of 30, he realized that rent had risen faster than his salary, so he worked hard to save money and informed his parents of his desire to buy a house in the deep city. Since that day, I have never seen any meat or fish on my parents' table again. But the down payment was still not enough, so my biological father kept it a secret from him and ran Didi during the day and night, almost causing cerebral hemorrhage. Is poverty really related to laziness? Jiang Qin has been pondering this issue for years. He felt that he was diligent enough and fully worthy of his name. What about the money? Who exactly earned the money from? When he was a child, his parents used to tell him with great emphasis that as long as you were willing to endure hardship, you would definitely succeed. But the fact he discovered as he grew up was that as long as you are willing to endure hardship, there must be endless suffering. Now, his blind date wants a dowry of 300,000 yuan. Jiang Qin, have you listened to me? Well, I've been listening. Then why don't you say a word? I've been talking for a while, and even my throat is hoarse. You don't care. Jiang Qin put down his water glass and after a moment of silence, he spoke up, why don't we just stop getting married? The woman was stunned for a moment, then became furious and said, what do you mean by that? It's nothing, I just feel tired and want to go home and take a nap. Jiang Qin, you coward, no wonder you're already 38 years old and no woman wants to be with you. Jiang Qin disregarded the woman's roar and walked out of the Western restaurant aimlessly along the road. When he arrived at a construction site, he saw a banner hanging on the wall, reading that the workers were from above. So he lit a cigarette, took 2 puffs, and then burned a hole in it. He didn't actually have much complaints about that woman, and even felt that her demands were normal. They are already 35 years old, what's wrong with being a little realistic? He is just thinking about a problem. Which day is the end of such a day? People who have never worked tirelessly advocate that working people are human beings, while those who have been working dare not say anything and can only nod and admit, ah, yes, yes. But where exactly do you look like a person? In this lifetime, I have only mixed up 2 pairs of AJs, still from Putian. Do you call this a person's master? As for love, Jiang Qin doesn't even know if this thing exists. He has kissed several times and met a few girls introduced by friends. No matter which one, he can make do with it, but the saddest thing is that he has only made do with it. Looking back on my life, there are really too many regrets in this life. Jiang Qin sighed and took out the phone from his pocket. He wanted to find a friend to drink with him, but when he opened it, he saw 4 text messages. A credit card payment reminder, a phone bill arrears warning, and a brother I am nearby. There is no one at home today. The last piece of text from his direct supervisor, with a long focus on language, told him that the company's performance has been poor recently, and he hopes that employees can voluntarily reduce their salaries and work together with the company to overcome difficulties. Jiang Qin instantly lost the mood of drinking and continued to smoke downstairs from the construction building. In this era, if you want to have money, you absolutely cannot work because the distribution of resources in this society is inherently unfair. But when Jiang Qin thought of her age, she couldn't help but laugh. It's a bit unrealistic to start a business again after 38, isn't it? He has been tired and broken in his waist for the past 2 years, and has also had problems with his cervical spine. He is more diligent than frequent urination due to his cross neuralgia. Dragging this broken body to start a business, even if you succeed, you will still be 50 years old. What else can you enjoy in this life? If only I could start over again. I won't work at all, and if I can be with the rich woman, I will be with her. If it really doesn't work, start your own business. Believe that you can earn more without money, but if you don't have a conscience, you can earn more. Jiang Qin took a deep breath, pinched his sore neck, and couldn't help but glance up. What is a black ball? Still coming straight ahead. Give him a shot of adrenaline, hurry up. Welcome the Olympics, promote civilization, and create a new atmosphere. Where's Director Liu? Ask if the operating room is available, hurry up. My door is often open arms waiting for you. Jiang Qin suddenly felt a bit dazzling in front of him, a bit noisy in his ears, his skin burning hot, and his mind feeling a bit dizzy. In a daze, he saw a very beautiful little girl, about 17 or 18 years old. She was wearing a fluffy floral dress, revealing a small section of fair and smooth calves, a straight nose bridge, rosy thin lips, slender and curly eyelashes, and a pair of bright eyes. Jiang Qin smiled. During the years of working diligently to change cars and villas for the big boss, he never even dreamed of such a beautiful girl. Such a beautiful girl, can she cry for a long time with just one slap? Jiang Qin, I really don't want to talk about friends, I'm sorry. Jiang Qin couldn't laugh anymore because he noticed that the girl in front of him became more and more active and clear. Her floral dress was printed with yano chrysanthemum, while she stood gracefully on the red plastic track, using her frosty arms to slightly block the sunlight and prevent herself from being unable to open her eyes. However, even so, the scorching weather still made this young and beautiful girl show some annoyance. If you don't speak, I'll assume you agree. We're still good friends, right? Jiang Qin's eyebrows began to furrow, and a hint of solemnity flashed in his eyes. She knows this girl, Chu Siki, the class flower from high school. She should have married someone by now. In high school and college, I pursued her for 7 years and was almost rejected by her to the point of doubting life. In fact, Jiang Qin is not a dog licker, nor can he do such a thing of being entangled in it. But the problem is that Chu Siki has been constantly intervening in his life as a friend, calling him to do this and that, and not allowing him to date other girls. She occasionally gives hope and throws 2 candies, which really torments young Jiang Qin. After finishing my freshman year, I will consider becoming your girlfriend. I didn't expect the workload to be so heavy in my sophomore year. Let's talk about it in my junior year. There are many competitions to participate in during my junior year, and I don't have time to fall in love. Until the second semester of her junior year, she walked hand in hand with a tall and thin boy wearing a couple's outfit. That day, she had a gentle face and sparkling eyes, smiling and asking her boyfriend if he was handsome. Afterwards, he was sealed in cement and never had any thoughts of dating again, only then did he have the story of reluctantly finding someone to get married at the age of 38. In 2008, there was no concept of a spare tire, and it was not until the development of the internet that Jiang Qin realized that he was actually a spare tire. She just couldn't find a suitable one for the time being, so she kept looking at herself from afar to afar. Whenever she was happy, she would tease her, and if she wasn't happy, she would ignore her. To put it simply, he is a tool for her to pass the time when she is bored. The past is vividly remembered, but Jiang Qin felt a bit dizzy and tinnitus at this moment. In my memory, Chengnan High School was the class flower of my teenage years. Is this Rebirth? Still dreaming? If it's Rebirth, what about Ding? Why not Ding? Jiang Qin trembled and reached out his hand, grabbing twice in the air without waking up any virtual screens. Is this really a fake Rebirth? Not even getting the necessary equipment. Jiang Qin, did you hear me talking? I really don't want to date now. Okay, we'll all listen to you. Jiang Qin casually replied, then closed his eyes and wanted to try to awaken Golden Finger with his mind, but unfortunately, he failed and really didn't have any system. Upon hearing his straightforward answer, Chu Siki was somewhat surprised. Jiang Qin's attitude was filled with indifference, which made her feel like she had punched cotton and was powerless. Did you not hear clearly? I just rejected you. I heard it, I'm not deaf again. So. Then you don't have anything to say to me. Jiang Qin accepted the reality without a system and his gaze fell on Chu Siki's hand. What is that thing in your hand? Chu Siki lifted the envelope in her hand with a proud expression and said, This is the love letter you just handed me. I told you not to give it back, so don't write it again next time. Can you return it to me? I'm useful. Jiang Qin took the love letter back without waiting for her to agree, then took out the page inside, squeezed it into a ball, stuffed it into his pocket, and then unfolded the envelope, spread it flat on his knee, and brushed 2 lines of writing. I don't work at all, but if I can get along with a rich woman, I'll get along with her. You can earn more when you run out of money, but you can earn more when you run out of conscience. Newcomer's new book, if you think it's still good, be sure to collect it. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The mission of Rebirth is to make money. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The mission of Rebirth is to make money. The thing that fell is a steel plate used for construction. Jiang Qin considered for a moment and came up with a reliable answer. So he first encountered a crucial question, why would I be reborn? The answer is actually very simple, probably feeling regret in the heart, which moved heaven and earth to obtain an opportunity. What is the regret for Jiang Qin? There's nothing else, it's just that we couldn't get the money. So he was born again to make money, and dogs don't even talk about love. Especially when it comes to the spare tire, it's the most energy-consuming thing. With this time, it's better to help parents brush their chopsticks and wash dishes. When people are young, they always think twice and appreciate beautiful things, which is understandable. However, for a man who is running for 4, if his mind is full of breasts and thighs when he is reborn, it would be ridiculous. They are reborn, serious people who fall in love his mother. Jiang Qin folded the written paper and put it in his pocket. When he looked up, he found Chu Siki frozen in place, with a hint of disbelief in his eyes. That's the love letter you wrote for me, you. How can you still go back? Don't you want it? Then don't waste it. I'll change my name and give it to someone else. Chu Siki choked for a moment and quickly changed her words. Jiang Qin, actually you don't have no chance at all. I just don't want to date now, but it's not necessarily after going to college. I'll be the first to consider you then. Jiang Qin couldn't help but glance at her, and a layer of goosebumps instantly formed on her body. If this is the adolescent version of oneself, it is really possible that due to this weak hope, one can continue on the same path to darkness. But from the perspective of the present, my vision when I was young was not so damn good. Are you still the first to consider me? Is this his mother human language? What I said is true, but there is one thing. You are not allowed to write love letters to others, you are not allowed to like others, otherwise we will never have a chance again. But I don't think I really like you. Let's get together and part ways, be good. Chu Siki widened her eyes slightly, and her proud heart was greatly stabbed. How could it be so easy to get together and part ways? It feels like you've been dumped. I'm so kind and encourage you not to give up. What's your attitude? Jiang Qin, do you know that love needs to be tempered? You can't even withstand a small setback. How can I consider being with you? I haven't even seen your determination, okay? Then you can try to hone it with someone else. I have more important things to do now. Jiang Qin is now full of money and really doesn't want to do too much useless entanglement. After listening, Chusiki immediately exploded and said, Jiang Qin, you bastard. I swear I will never talk to you again. Wait a moment. As Chusiki was about to run away, Jiang Qin suddenly stopped her with an unusual nervousness on her face. Seeing his expression, Chusiki was slightly happy for a moment, and the girl's pride instantly returned to her face. He is indeed afraid that he will ignore him, and anything that is easy to gather or disperse is just a matter of hard talk. What's wrong? Is there anything else, but I have to tell you in advance that you won't have another chance. Jiang Qin casually picked up his stationery bag and glanced at it. Are we taking the college entrance examination? Have we finished? Which subject have we been to? Chu Siki hesitated for a moment and said, I've finished the exam. I just finished my last subject this morning. Great, if I were to take the exam again, I wouldn't even be able to get into Lanxiang Technical School. Chu Siki looked at his brilliant smile and suddenly felt a little dazed. You stopped me just to tell me this. Jiang Qin took a deep breath and said, there's one more thing. Does finishing the exam mean we're on vacation? I don't know, ask whoever you like. Chu Siki was furious and ran back to the teaching building. If rejected, pretend not to care. What kind of person does he think doing this will soften his heart? I don't know where I learned it from, but I'll just ignore you for a week. Let's see who's in a hurry to admit their mistake. Jiang Qin packed up his things and turned to walk towards the teaching building, but before taking a few steps, he was surrounded by a group of classmates watching the excitement. I told you you would definitely fail, and Chu Siki is also someone you like as you please. It's beyond your control. The speaker's name is Qin Xiang, a famous wealthy second generation from class 2 of 3 years. Laozi is the largest real estate developer in the local area. This guy once made a grand move in the school cafeteria, shouting that I'll pay for the whole thing. It's really arrogant. Lao Jiang, there's no need to feel sad. There are not 100 or 80 people who have been rejected by Chu Siki. I'll treat you to a soda later. The second speaker was a small black chubby man wearing glasses, a close friend of Jiang Qin during his high school years, named Guo Zihang. Jiang Qin ignored Qin Xiang's sarcasm and instead looked at Guo Zihang with some emotion, patting his shoulder with one hand. Lao Guo, your legs are still there. It's not easy to see you stand up. What's going on? Pack up and leave school. Jiang Qin rode his bike all the way south. To be honest, a young body is really good, without fatigue or soreness, who knows who uses it. If it were before his rebirth, not to mention riding a bicycle, he might be breathless even after walking a few steps. Now it's different. With such a physique, if we take it to the factory for screwing, we can probably build a house. He watched the promotional slogans welcoming the Olympics on the road push faster and faster, indulging in feeling this youthful body. Yoha, there's still hair that can fly with the wind, it feels like it's been a long time since. Half an hour later, he arrived at the bustling community located in the north of the city. The building here has turned black, and the paint on the walls has peeled off like a ringworm. The entire community doesn't even have a formal entrance, only a horizontal bar that restricts vehicle entry. When you look in from the entrance, the first thing you see is not the unit door, but the privately built miscellaneous room. If I remember correctly, this should be the first batch of neighborhoods to be demolished in the old city area. In July of this year, an official demolition letter will be issued. In order to prove the determination of the demolition and renovation project, the government issued all the compensation funds in October. His third uncle's Lianxiao is the resident here. As soon as he receives the money, his overall temperament changes. He smokes Chinese cigarettes and even clamors to drive a Mercedes. But later on, when Mercedes-Benz didn't start, his two sons started fighting first. The second son married a new wife for half, and the eldest son married someone else's wife for half. At that time, both of these people had their heads broken. The second person said, "Boss, you want half of a second hand one, but why not be reasonable?" After listening to this, the boss suddenly became angry. "Why did I marry a big one and give away a small one? Isn't it better than you? I want to buy it." Jiang Qin couldn't help but drool as he looked at this old residential area. But now there is a very serious problem, which is that he doesn't have any money at all. How much money can a graduate who has just finished the college entrance examination have in their hands? There are coins for buying ice cream, but don't think about buying a house. Jiang Qin felt a little regretful, always feeling that countless small coins rolled past him and eventually disappeared without a trace. He really doesn't have the ability to raise an initial amount of funds in a short period of time, so there is very little he can do. Buying a house and land is not realistic, and investing in stocks also lacks capital. This is the downside of not having a system. Even if you have many good ideas in your mind and no money, it is difficult to take the first step. Am I really a fake student? At this moment, Jiang Qin suddenly saw a bus parked on the roadside in front of her. Chu Siki got off the bus and her floral skirt swayed in the wind. As soon as she got off the car, she saw Jiang Qin with a surprised expression on her face. Then she snorted and looked up, as if waiting for something. But what she didn't expect was that Jiang Qin just politely nodded and reluctantly glanced at the community across the street before riding his bike and leaving. The gentle breeze lifted a corner of the skirt, leaving only endless astonishment and helplessness under the bus stop sign. Newcomer's new book, if you think it's still good, be sure to collect it. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Making money is really not easy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Making money is really not easy. After leaving the bustling community, Jiang Qin headed straight to his home. A 120 square meter 3-bedroom apartment, with a living room on the left and a kitchen on the right, almost carries all of Jiang Qin's beautiful memories. Ms. Yuan Yuqin, my biological mother, is cooking around an apron. The chopping board is chopping as loudly as possible, and it sounds like meat dishes or those with bones. My father Jiang Qin sat on the sofa reading the newspaper, humming "Clouds of Hometown," his slippers swaying on his toes. Feeling the familiar warmth, Jiang Qin couldn't help but feel a little emotional. After drifting deeply for many years, I am actually a rootless duckweed. If I raise my roots here, then this is a home that cannot be replaced by anywhere else. Especially when I see my parents suddenly young, it feels really amazing. I'm back. Jiang Qin squinted his eyes and glanced at him. Did you finish the exam? Ms. Yuan Yuqin also poked her head out of the kitchen and said, how are you confident? One foot has already entered the key gate. Stinky kid, what you're saying is so full, really fake. Ms. Yuan Yuqin looked at him with some suspicion. Jiang Qin gave face a lot and said, I dare to say this big thing, but I guess I have some confidence in my heart. Let's have a good dinner tonight. Jiang Qin waved his hand and directly refused, Dad, I've made up my mind. I want to start a business during the summer vacation, and I can't waste any time. Entrepreneurship. It's about making money. Ms. Yuan Yuqin thought for a moment and said, after finishing your meal, you can wash the dishes. I'll give you 5 yuan for a bowl and 10 yuan for a pot. Jiang Qin sighed and didn't argue anything, let me do the dishes and pots. How about giving me 300 yuan in total? After listening, Jiang Qin suddenly looked up and said, is there such a good thing? Then I'll do it too. Go ahead, 300 yuan is enough for me to buy a new set. I wash my pots and dishes every day, but I haven't seen anyone give me 300 yuan. Go wash your hands and eat. Hey, my king's entrepreneurship has not started yet and the beginning has collapsed. Jiang Qin sighed and washed his hands before returning to the dining table to have a meal with his parents. Before going to bed, Yuan Yuqin walked out of the bedroom and stuffed 5 Grandpa Mao cards into his hand. In fact, Ms. Yuan also knows that graduating from high school is like a wild horse breaking free, spending money on gatherings and singing with classmates. Previously, asking him to wash dishes and give him 5 yuan was just a tough talk but a soft-hearted one. Looking at the 500 in his hand, Jiang Qin's heart slightly soured. Which big entrepreneur has only 500 yuan of original capital, but 500 yuan is better than nothing. Ms. Yuan, you will become the mother of the chairman in the future. I'm satisfied with you being the general manager. Oh, by the way, I asked your uncle at noon, how many days will you go to Jingfang driving school to learn how to drive? I'll talk about learning how to drive later. I have something urgent to do recently. Jiang Qin took the money and went back to the bedroom. He opened the computer and found Guo Zihang's QQ number, telling him to gather at Central Street early tomorrow morning. Guo Zihang asked him what he was going to do, but Jiang Qin didn't say it directly. He just said that he now has 500 yuan, and this guy is so greedy that he calls him brother. After agreeing on tomorrow's actions, Jiang Qin casually opened Baidu and planned to read news online, trying to awaken some memories of key nodes such as demolition and renovation, policy changes, stock market status, market premiums, etc., in order to prepare for wealth. But before the web page could load, his gaze stopped on the friend list on QQ's computer. Is Chu Siki's chat box on the top status? Jiang Qin moved her mouse over, directly removed the top position, locked her own space, and also replaced her non-mainstream avatar. After finishing all of this, he took a look at his personal signature and took a quick glance, pulling out all 3 bedrooms and 1 living room. I love you, what's your concern? Awkwardly, Jiang Qin slammed his forehead, quickly deleted it, and wrote a new song from yesterday. After completing the signature changes, Jiang Qin noticed that Chu Siki, who had just had a gray avatar, suddenly went online, and her avatar was still jumping, clearly sending a message. So he casually opened it and glanced at it, then blankly turned it off. The other party asked him why he suddenly closed the space and ordered him to quickly open it up, saying he wanted to step on the space. Still stepping on the space. How many years have passed since I heard such an ancient sentence? Do you want to run another class? The next morning, the sky was clear and the sun was warm and the wind was gentle. Jiang Qin rode his bike out and arrived at the pedestrian street on Pingyang East Road. This street can be considered the busiest commercial pedestrian street in Jeju City. Before the completion of the renovation of the old market, it was once a prime location for various vendors to compete for. However, due to the intense competition, the price war took off, making the things here relatively cheaper. Guo Zihang was sweating profusely when he arrived at the gathering place, thinking about the 500 yuan in Jiang Qin's pocket. Jiang, how are you going to spend the 500 yuan in your pocket? I haven't been to a bar yet, why don't we go and experience it? Stop talking about that useless thing. Have you seen the uncle who sells boxed meals? Go ask how much boxed meals cost. Guo Zihang looked in the direction pointed by Jiang Qin's finger and his face turned pale in an instant. Let's have boxed lunch at noon, right? Jiang Qin squinted his eyes but didn't say directly, you go ask first. Don't worry, I won't treat you unfairly. Oh. Guo Zihang walked over in a muffled manner and asked the price. The prices in 2008 were not too high, with 2 pieces of boxed rice with shredded potatoes, 3 pieces with some minced meat, 5 pieces of chicken legs with shredded potatoes, and 6 pieces of chicken legs with poached eggs. Jiang Qin glanced at the time, pondered for a moment, and threw 200 yuan to the boss, telling him not to ask, just to do it. Then he brought 2 cardboard boxes, packed some of the prepared boxed meals, and led Guo Zihang to an internet cafe street. Pushing open the door of one of the internet cafes, Jiang Qin first took out a bag of yushi that he had bought on the way and handed it to the internet administrator. Then, he began to sell his boxed meals. The netizens who had been online all night were now extremely hungry and didn't want to go out to eat. Seeing the food delivered to their door, they immediately became extremely greedy. Although boxed meals are not uncommon, they are always better than instant noodles, right? So, 2 pieces were sold for 4, 5 pieces were sold for 7, 6 pieces were sold for 9, and in the end, except for 2 boxes of chicken legs and poached eggs, all the rest were sold out. From 7 a.m. to 1 p.m., the 2 of them went back and forth 3 times, switching to 5 internet cafes, and even raising prices twice in between. Guo Zihang was extremely tired, panting with his tongue out, and the sweat on his forehead was dripping incessantly. Jiang Qin's back was also soaked in sweat, squatting on the roadside while wiping sweat and counting money. The box lunch for 200 yuan was sold for 378 yuan, and there were still 2 boxes of chicken leg rice left, which happened to be 1 box for each person. In fact, he didn't do this to make money, mainly to clarify his thinking. Now it seems that his thinking is not a problem. Money can be earned, but the profit point is too thin. However, Jiang Qin is not disappointed. How much profit does he still want with a capital of 200 yuan? It can't be thousands. He had never done any business before his rebirth, and playing this game today is entirely to feel the feeling of making money. But to be honest, it was a bit of a loss. Just Yushi gave out 5 boxes, which was more than 100 yuan for the first time, and in half a day, the 2 of them were exhausted like dogs, only getting over 70. But what if the principal is larger and something of value is wasted? A doubling of 78 is quite good. Jiang Qin drew out 5 10-yuan coins and handed them to Guo Zihang. This dog coin immediately stopped tiring him, and he grabbed the money and shouted, "Thank you, brother." "Brother, what are you doing tomorrow?" "Damn it, I'm almost exhausted. I only earned 78 and even gave you 50. The remaining money is enough to buy a pack of cigarettes." Jiang Qin was cursing, but in fact, he had been thinking about the first bucket of gold in his heart. Where can I earn my first bucket of gold? In online novels, those reincarnated dog coins can easily make big business, but why can't they end up with themselves? If it's really not possible, persuade the couple to sell the house and buy Bitcoin and Moutai stocks directly. At this moment, the boxed lunch master holding a shovel came over. He first stared at Jiang Qin, then mysteriously leaned in and handed over a white general. How much did you sell your 200 yuan boxed lunch for? Jiang Qin took the cigarette and calmly looked up, saying, 406. Guo Ziheng stood beside for a moment, isn't it 308? But looking at Jiang Qin's calm and composed demeanor, he didn't dare to speak and swallowed before bowing his head. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Beautiful girls are the most cheating. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Beautiful girls are the most cheating 200 to 406. Can you earn 2.5 days of money in a day? The old man who sold boxed meals immediately became envious. He smiled and lifted his pants, then squatted next to Jiang Qin. The scent of oil and smoke mixed in and made Jiang Qin feel a bit dizzy. However, Jiang Qin didn't say anything, just moved aside and took the opportunity to pin the cigarette that the master handed over to his ear. He doesn't look like a high school graduate at all, but rather like an old oilseed who dropped out of school to make a living. Man, can you tell me the address for selling boxed meals? Jiang Qin seemed to have anticipated it earlier and skillfully raised 2 fingers, saying, Grandpa, you give me 200 yuan, and I'll tell you the address. The old man widened his eyes like copper bells, shooting lightning shrewdly, 200 yuan. I can barely make 200 yuan by working here for a day. Can't you make 400 by changing your address? First, let me guess if it's worth it. The old man selling boxed meals hesitated a bit, and 200 yuan was not a small amount. We just went to an internet cafe street. East end of Shanghai Road. Yes. Why do I think it's a good place? The business there is indeed good, but the urban management inspection is too strict. I went there once, but my car was confiscated and I still can't come back. I haven't finished speaking yet. If you give me 200 yuan, I'll keep going. If you feel it's not suitable, I'll give it back to you. I'm still a student, so I won't cheat you, right? Jiang Qin's voice was full of temptation. After hesitating for a while, the seller took out 200 yuan from his pocket and said, Tell me, if it's not worth it, I'll get a refund. Jiang Qin rolled up 200 and stuffed them into his pocket. There is a foot-washing city called Shuyunjian on that street. There is a large courtyard inside from the entrance, and the fire exits of 7 internet cafes all lead to that courtyard. Also, the old man who looks at the entrance likes to smoke at Hongta Mountain, but most importantly, there is no city management there. What's the use of the old gatekeeper? How dare he put me inside to sell boxed meals? Jiang Qin smiled calmly and said, He is the biological father of the boss in Shuyunjian. Watching the door is because he feels uncomfortable being idle at home. After pondering for a while, the boxed lunch seller's face lit up with joy and said, Got it, man. We won't charge you for the boxed lunch next time we come. It's easy to say. I have figured out the foot-washing city since I was young, and you have great potential in the future. Jiang Qin clasped his fists and arched, Thank you very much. Guo Ziheng, who was standing next to him, was stunned for a while. He trembled and grabbed Jiang Qin, his eyes filled with envy. Old Jiang, have you been to a magical place like the foot-wash city? It's just a necessary path for men. Ah. Alright, stop it. I made some money today. Please have some good food. Jiang Qin stood up and patted his buttocks, carrying a huge sum of over 700 yuan, and walked forward along the main road. Watching his graceful and distant figure, Guo Ziheng was slightly taken aback, feeling as if his friend had a sense of maturity that had weathered all the vicissitudes of life. Just like the kind of person in a TV drama who sees through life, although their face is still full of laughter and anger, their gaze is profound and sharp, as if they can see through the essence of things. They were exhausted just now, running for a whole morning and selling only over 300 yuan. The profit was not enough to buy cigarettes, but Jiang Qin dared to say that he had earned 46 yuan. The most crucial thing is that the old man selling boxed meals had a shrewd expression on his face, and in the end, he really fooled him by spending 200 yuan just to buy an address. Being able to run trains with adults without showing any fear is something that Guo Zihang cannot do. When he helps his mother buy groceries, he even dares not talk about bargaining. No wonder he doesn't even care about his confession failure. The people in the class thought he was pretending and that he was just trying to leave some pitiful dignity for himself, but at this moment, Guo Zihang had some faith in Jiang Qin. He may not have really taken this matter to heart. However, as soon as Chu Siki was mentioned, Guo Zihang's soul of gossip began to burn fiercely again. Lao Jiang, how have you been with the Chu goddess? Jiang Qin turned to look at him and said, what can I do with her? You've been in love with her for 3 years, isn't it like this? She said she would consider it when she goes to college. Guo Zihang kept asking, he really didn't understand. It's fortunate to give up at this time, even though he survived the summer vacation and went to college. She said college is college. I don't want to wait anymore. If a beautiful girl can be trusted, then even pigs will climb trees. Jiang Qin said expressionlessly, his words filled with mockery of love. Falling in love can delay making money, being a licking dog can delay life. The bloody lessons of past lives are enough to prove this viewpoint. Women only affect the speed of making money, and apart from that, they are useless. He has experienced the pain of a secret love during adolescence and the terror of a dowry of 300,000 yuan. It's not that he's not interested in women, but he feels that life should once again distinguish priorities. But these are all your guesses. Maybe Chu Siki really plans to fall in love with you as soon as she goes to college. Don't you think it's a loss to give up now? Old Guo, once a man has this kind of idea, it's basically like painting the ground as a prison. Whether it's love or work, it's like this. If it's not in your hands, don't believe it even if others say it out loud. Jiang Qin's gaze deepened slightly, and suddenly remembered the promise he had made when he first joined the company. What kind of project dividends, company shares, foreign tourism, and living allowances for immediate family members? It's the same as Chu Siki saying that if we work hard, we will fall in love. It's a legend that everyone knows, but no one has ever seen. If she has hope for legendary things, her mother might as well believe in light. As soon as he thought about this, Jiang Qin couldn't help thinking of Dika, a hero in the universe, and his mother was a liar. I borrowed my own light back then, and when I fought against Gitangel, I slipped away and flew. However, my future became dark, and this guy didn't even mention returning his light. When you don't lick your dog and don't do anything, work hard to make money. This is the right path in life. At the same time, Guo Zihang suddenly began to scratch his head rapidly, making a hissing sound in his mouth. Jiang Qin looked at him and felt strange, but couldn't help but stare at him for a few moments. What's wrong with you? You didn't wash your hair when you went out. No, I feel like after listening to you, my brain is going to grow inside my head. What? At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Jiang Qin and Guo Zihang walked out of the restaurant, already in a state of being full of food and drink. However, Guo Zihang still couldn't forget places like bars and wanted Jiang Qin to take him to experience them, but before they could take a few steps, 2 familiar figures appeared before their eyes. One is the math class representative Wang Huiru in the class, and the other is the class flower Chu Siki. 2 girls are coming out of the pedestrian street arm in arm, one holding the starch sausage and the other holding the tomatoes on sticks. The hot summer weather made them sweat profusely, even their hair on the forehead was wet, and their small faces were extremely hot and pink. Coupled with the rapid breathing, their breasts, which had developed to their initial size, continued to rise and fall. Wang Huiru is very beautiful, with a feeling of being a small family jade. When she smiles, she has 2 pair curls. She is wearing a suspender, youthful and lively. If you look at it alone, she can be considered a beauty, but walking with Chu Siki doesn't have much advantage. Chu Siki is wearing a beige long skirt today, with the hem hanging down to her knees. Her eyes are agile and bright, her facial features are exquisite, her red lips are full, and her skin color is more beautiful than snow. The Wang Huiru beside her seems to compliment her. As soon as the four of them met, the first thing that came to mind was Wang Huiru, whose gaze was always forward. She immediately raised her hand and said hello. Jiang Qin, Guozihang, why are you here? Upon hearing someone calling him, Jiang Qin instinctively looked up and her gaze accidentally intertwined with Chu Siki in the bustling crowd. Then he restrained his smile and turned his head slightly indifferent. Perhaps due to his past life memories, Jiang Qin always has a divine perspective when looking at interpersonal relationships, so he really doesn't have a good impression of Chu Siki. But his soul, which was nearly 40 years old, brought him enough maturity and stability to prevent him from turning around and leaving, but only to this extent. Newcomer's new book, Seeking Support, Seeking Recommendation Tickets, end of this chapter. Why didn't you pursue me in Chapter 5? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Why didn't you pursue me in Chapter 5? We're doing business. Guozihang belongs to the kind of existence that can smile at anyone. If he looks any better, he can definitely be considered a warm-hearted man. However, unfortunately, his appearance is not up to par, and he can only barely be considered a passionate brother. So when Wang Huiru asked them what they were doing, Guozihang directly revealed the fact that they were selling boxed meals today, and his words were full of pride, as if they were very worthy of pride. In fact, Guozihang didn't think wrong either. It's really impressive to say this out loud. You should know that high school students in this era are still quite shy. They can be nervous for half a day when asked the way by strangers, let alone go out to make money. Of course, there are also some high school students who want to experience life and have a desire to make money in their hearts. But at most, they just do a part-time job and distribute flyers. But Jiang Qin was able to earn hundreds of yuan by using the trick of using empty hands to trap a white wolf, and then buying and reselling land and playing as a middleman to earn the price difference. Who wouldn't be confused about this? Wang Huiru's father is an elementary school teacher, and his salary is only 3,000 yuan per month. After deducting the 5 insurances and 1 fund, he can share it evenly and receive less than 100 yuan per day. Although the amount of money earned cannot be measured by the average, Jiang Qin's ability to earn 27 yuan a day is already a great shock to their worldview. Especially when Guozihang vividly described Jiang Qin throwing cigarettes to the network administrator and selling them for 200 yuan using just one address, Jiang Qin's image directly increased in Wang Huiru's heart. Jiang Qin, why did you suddenly start learning how to do business? Save money to marry a wife, Jiang Qin casually said. Wang Huiru chuckled at his words and said, start saving now. What a precious wife are you going to marry? Jiang Qin raised the corner of his mouth slightly and said, it depends on how many people you marry. The more you marry, the more money you need. How many more do you want to marry? You're so beautiful. Later, Wang Huiru talked to Guozihang about filling out her college application, with a tone full of longing for college life. Jiang Qin, on the other hand, remained in a bystander's position with a smile on his face and did not say anything more. He has already experienced it once during his college years, so he doesn't have much longing or desire to interrupt. Even though many of Guozihang and Wang Huiru's fantasies about college life were outrageously wrong, he did not go out to correct them like Lao Dongga did. Life requires one's own experience to be meaningful. No one has the right to arrogantly break someone else's expectations. Even if you really know a lot, you still need to consider whether they want to know. During this process, Chu Siki's eyes were slightly cold and she looked at Jiang Qin with a gloomy expression. From the moment she refused Jiang Qin's confession, she felt as if he had changed his personality. He no longer looks for himself on QQ, no longer posts good morning and good night, no longer secretly leaves messages in his own space. His profile picture has been changed, and his signature has also been changed. It's like they've become strangers. The most outrageous thing is that yesterday she was impulsively looking at his space when suddenly she was forced to leave, and only when she entered again did she realize that his space was locked. This made her feel restless and aggrieved the more she thought about it, so she pretended to be indifferent and sent him a message asking him why he locked the space, whether it was for everyone or only for herself. Until now, Jiang Qin has not even replied to her with half a symbol. But why? It's you who likes me, not me who likes you. Why did you suddenly stop sending me messages, and why didn't you let me into your space? I didn't explicitly say that I hate you, nor did I ask you not to pursue me. Why did you decide to give up on your own? As soon as she thought about this, Chu Siki couldn't help but think of the afternoon when she took the bus home. She met Jiang Qin on the roadside and thought he was here to apologize. She had already thought about it at the time. If Jiang Qin's attitude was good enough to admit that he was tough, she might give him a little chance. I didn't expect him to just nod slightly and then ride away. Adolescent girls have a sensitive inner self and a proud sense of self-esteem. Being treated like this by someone who once pursued them hard would make anyone feel wronged. So Chu Siki got angry when she got home and swore never to say a word to Jiang Qin again. No matter how much Jiang Qin apologizes or pleads, she won't have any softness in her heart. But until just now, when she met Jiang Qin again on the street, Chu Siki couldn't help but start brainstorming. She secretly thought to herself that as long as Jiang Qin could take the initiative to say hello and admit in a low voice that she was wrong, she could also give him a few cold responses. But what she didn't expect was that Jiang Qin just stood there calmly from beginning to end. Apart from chatting with Wang Huiru, he didn't even look at himself. Chu Siki became more and more angry as she thought, her full chest constantly undulating, and she instinctively began to exert force while holding on to Wang Huiru's arm. Wang Huiru, who was in pain, regained her senses and glanced at her best friend, then at Jiang Qin. Suddenly, she remembered the emotional entanglement between the two on the day of the college entrance examination. No wonder these two people haven't spoken yet. Jiang Qin should be so insecure that she dare not speak up to the goddess who rejected her, right? Actually, Wang Huiru has a good impression of Jiang Qin. Especially after listening to Guo Zihang's praise of Jiang Qin, she felt that Jiang Qin had a maturity that other boys did not have. So she plans to help Jiang Qin. What if it can lead to a good relationship? Jiang Qin. Wang Huiru's gaze flashed with a hint of cunning. Did you just suggest to our family's Siki when you said you wanted to make money and marry a wife? Jiang Qin's face turned pale, and his right eyelid began to twitch. Sister, please spare me, he said, isn't it? The temple is small, and there is no good fortune to enjoy. Upon hearing these words, Chu Siki couldn't hold her tension anymore. She bit her silver teeth together and a layer of mist appeared in her eyes. Jiang Qin, what do you mean? Jiang Qin waved his hand and said, it's nothing, I'll withdraw first. You guys can continue playing. You're not allowed to leave. If I don't let you leave, you're not allowed to leave. Jiang Qin waved his hand as if he hadn't heard him, rode his bike to the roadside, and then joined the crowd on the street without looking back. Rebirth, there is no need to explain too much to people who will no longer be related, so he didn't even bother to say anything. Don't forget your original intention and keep your mission in mind. Are you joking with me? Chu Siki stood in place, feeling extremely aggrieved as she watched his receding figure. Tears welled up in her eyes. She didn't suddenly realize that she liked Jiang Qin like those vulgar female leads in novels, so she felt regretful. She just felt as if she was looked down upon by Jiang Qin, as if she was something annoying that he couldn't avoid. Watching her best friend choking silently, Wang Huiru beside her immediately panicked. Didn't my best friend refuse Jiang Qin's confession? Why is it that Jiang Qin has left now and her best friend is crying? What kind of performance is this? Newcomer's new book, if you think it's still good, be sure to collect it. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Jiang Qin will definitely regret it. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Jiang Qin will definitely regret it. Siki, why are you crying? Jiang Qin has changed. He would never have treated me like this before. I won't let him go, he just left on purpose, he's just angry with me. Chu Siki gritted her teeth, tears in her eyes, her chest constantly heaving, and the more she thought about it, the more she felt aggrieved. From childhood to adulthood, she has always been the apple of everyone's eye. Her parents are used to her, her teachers are doting on her, and everyone around her is circling around her. However, just now she felt a hint of annoyance from Jiang Qin's eyes, which made her feel very hurt. Chu Siki felt like a very kind girl. Even if she refused Jiang Qin, she didn't say anything and encouraged him to continue persevering, giving him warmth and hope. But what about him? He didn't even feel grateful and looked at himself with disgust. Didn't he think he was going too far? He used to chat with himself every day, and as long as he replied casually, he would be very happy. Now he has taken the initiative to talk to him, and he is not satisfied. Huiru, although I rejected him, he said, if you don't pursue me, then don't pursue me. Are you saying he's too much? I gave him hope. This. Wang Huiru didn't know how to answer. In theory, after Jiang Qin confessed, he was rejected and decided not to pursue him, which is also a common occurrence. But Chu Siki always says she hopes for something. What does that really mean? Have you already fallen in love with Jiang Qin? Just want to see his determination, thinking that if he can persist for a while, he will agree to it. Chu Siki immediately interrupted her words. How could that be? I admit I have some feelings for him, but it hasn't reached that point yet. At least he wants to chase after him for a little longer. Wang Huiru remained silent for a while and said, how long is this longer? I don't know, but he definitely wants me to see his greatest sincerity until I'm too tempted to think about it. Siki, it's okay for you to let him persist, but have you ever thought about it? What if you encounter someone you like even more in the future? Of course I would choose to be with someone I like more. What about Jiang Qin? After thinking for a while, Chu Siki spoke up, that can only be said to be that we were destined but not meant to be, and we can't blame me either. After listening, Wang Huiru felt a chill in her spine and said, don't you think that if there really were one day, Jiang Qin would be very pitiful? He persisted for so long, only to see you with someone else. What can I do? I can't give up on the person I like, just because he persisted for a long time. I choose him. Wang Huiru's mind was completely confused. She thought Chu Siki's words might sound fine at first, but the more she pondered, the bigger the problem became. Isn't this purely a delay? But she and Chu Siki are best friends. From the perspective of a close relationship, she cannot help Jiang Qin say good things, but must stand firmly on the side of her best friend. Don't worry, Siki. I think Jiang Qin must be pretending. Installed. He just felt a little confused and embarrassed after being rejected by you, so he pretended to be cold. But I estimate he will come to you again after a few days of persistence. After hearing these words, Chu Siki did not cry anymore, and her proud and coquettish energy surged again. Even if he really regrets it, I will definitely not give him another chance. After listening, Wang Huiru nodded hard and said, yes, you must not give him a chance. When will he regret it? Do you really want to see him regret it? Wang Huiru couldn't help but ask. Chu Siki thought for a moment, then nodded very seriously. She felt that Jiang Qin was too bad, playing with her emotions and self-esteem. Only when he regretted coming to find him and being strongly rejected by him, could her tone be dispelled. Wang Huiru couldn't help but secretly sigh in her heart, not knowing how to answer the conversation. She felt that it was best for Jiang Qin not to turn back and to retreat while he was fully recovered, otherwise he might not have made a scene in the end. But she could never have imagined that Jiang Qin had witnessed the ending and witnessed the joy of being abandoned, which was why he had no good feelings for Chu Siki at all. Love is like this, there is no reason at all. You have loved someone for many years, being obedient and meticulous towards them, yet never even holding hands. But one day, someone suddenly appeared, and just a few sweet words can earn her all the love. Do you reason with love? That love will only give you the big mouth you love to eat. At the same time, Jiang Qin returned to the community, parked his car, walked to the community garden, and then sat on a stone bench to start pondering. His contemplation has nothing to do with Chu Siki, because he doesn't care about Chu Siki at all. He is still thinking about the first bucket of gold. Summer vacation is neither too long nor too short. In theory, anything can be done slowly without too much panic. But starting a business should be done sooner rather than later, so the issue of the first bucket of gold is urgent and he must look for all possibilities. After pondering and pondering, he thought it might be easier to talk to his parents, so he got up and went upstairs to find Ms. Yuan Yuqin, who was enjoying the weekend. "Mom, how much savings do we have at home? Can you lend me some? A few tens of thousands is fine, even better." Ms. Yuan Yuqin reached out and touched under the table, handing him 2 mahjong cards, one worth 80,000 and one worth 90,000. "Save some money," she said. Jiang Qin's mouth twitched and said, "Mom, you're not even willing to give me 2 90,000 mahjong cards. Damn it, where do we have any savings at home? We still have over 100,000 yuan, and it's not worth selling you." At this moment, Jiang Zhenghong raised his head to look at Jiang Qin, hesitating to speak, and his breathing slightly intensified. Seeing this scene, Jiang Qin's eyes lit up instantly. Sure enough, Jiang is still old and spicy. Judging from his own father's expression, he must have some private money in his hand, hesitating whether to lend it to him. "Dad, do you have anything you want to say to me?" "Forget it, there's nothing else. You go and have some fun." "It's okay, Dad. Stop pretending and let's have a showdown. I've already stabilized myself. Can you help me pour a cup of tea, son?" "What?" 3 minutes later, Jiang Qin, who had finished pouring tea, returned to his room and returned to a state of being unable to be loved. He felt that he had been deceived by Lard to have hope for his biological father. Mr. Jiang Zhenghong is notorious for being a rakier. If his private money exceeds 5 yuan, he will panic and cannot sleep. How could he possibly borrow tens of thousands from himself? However, big business cannot be done, small business still needs to be done. After all, small money is also money, and even small savings can lead to more. Moreover, starting a business is already the most difficult thing, and it is not realistic to rely on others. Borrow money. He is now surrounded by high school students, and having a $5 bill in his pocket is not enough. He can't borrow much at all. Loans. It can be considered, but the procedures are too cumbersome, and he was suffocated by the mortgage in his past life, so he has an instinctive resistance to the loan. Jiang Qin took off his clothes and went to bed, intending to have a good sleep first. Tomorrow, he will go elsewhere to look for business opportunities, at least doubling his 700 yuan in hand. Rebirth and entrepreneurship, it's easy to say, but it's not as simple as I thought. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. True White Moonlight. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. True White Moonlight. The next morning, the dawn spread throughout. Jiang Qin slipped out of his house, rode his bike around the city, and then entered the Jeju Zoo. Because it's a combination of Sunday and summer vacation, the entrance to the zoo is crowded with people. It's even more crowded than attending a temple fair. An hour later, Jiang Qin squeezed out of the zoo and almost stepped on her shoes. After leaving the door, he squatted in front of the door and took a big sip of water, then reached out for his Nokia and called Guo Ziheng, asking him to come over. Guo Ziheng's home is not far from here. After receiving a call from Jiang Qin, he immediately got on the car and rushed here, snorting all the way. Although he was sweating profusely, he was in a great mood. He is now looking forward to being summoned by Jiang Gu every day, always thinking that he will have money to earn again in the next second, but when he finds Jiang Qin, he can't help but be stunned on the spot. I saw Jiang Qin squatting on the ground, holding a plucked chicken in each hand. "Jiang, what are you doing?" Jiang Qin shook the chicken in his hand and said, "I bought 2 chickens for 10 yuan, and I'll give you one as a gift. Take it back and let your mother stew it for you to eat." Guo Ziheng looked at the doorplate of the zoo. Although he didn't understand, he was greatly shocked and said, "How come you take your own animals while visiting the zoo?" "It's not brought, I bought it. It's for feeding tigers in the zoo. A chicken in the market costs 11 yuan, but you bought their chicken to feed their tigers, so it's half the price. So, why don't you go feed the tiger?" After listening, Jiang Qin's eyes stiffened and he said, "I bought a half-price chicken with my skills. Why feed the tiger?" Guo Ziheng opened his mouth and hesitated for a while before saying, "You're pulling wool from the zoo. Stop talking nonsense, do you want it?" "Yes, I love to eat chicken." Guo Ziheng took the chicken handed over by Jiang Qin, clenched its neck, and then glanced at it. His expression suddenly became very complicated. He can imagine the scene where the tiger in the zoo reconciles with the administrator, only to find that no matter how the accounts are matched. The tiger said, "I didn't eat it. Don't frame me," his mother. The administrator said that if you compare less, it's what you eat. The tiger said that it's reasonable for you to steal my chicken, his mother. Anyway, I didn't eat it. The administrator said you didn't eat the dog anymore. "Jiang, why are you coming to the zoo to buy chickens?" "I plan to purchase half-price chickens in bulk, quietly ship them out, and sell them to the market at a low price of 10 yuan, which can be doubled with just one change of hands." "Why did you only buy 2? "I checked and found out that the security guard at the entrance of the zoo is a bit strong. I don't think I can beat him, so I asked you to be the vanguard and help me test his strength." "Don't, brother Jiang, I'm the most cowardly. Don't say I got into a fight, I stutter when I curse. You only know how to eat things that are not promising." Jiang Qin put the chicken in his hand into a plastic bag and twisted open the mineral water to take a sip. Speculation is a quick way to make money, but it can't be done all the time. He doesn't want to cause trouble, just wants to stand and earn money. Besides, this kind of small fuss is far from his goal of being reborn. Jiang Qin stood up and handed his chicken to Guo Ziheng, asking him to help carry it back. He then rode his bike to the next station, the Jizhou Library. He is currently having a headache about the first bucket of gold, but he has tried various methods but none of them work. Damn it, missing a system is really difficult to move forward. However, even if he had no ideas, he didn't plan to squat at home because as long as people were lazy, they would become lazier and lazier. This was a truth he had summarized from his past life. Therefore, he decided to come to the library to find some books and see if there was a golden house in the books, maybe it could give him some inspiration. How to become a charming and stylish man that wealthy women like, effective opening speech after encountering a rich woman, 15 gentlemen's details touching rich women, the glorious transformation of the third-generation Tang monk, the successful cases of being beside rich women. Jiang Qin selected several books from the humanities and social sciences section and plans to study them carefully. To be honest, he felt that the only shortcut he could get his first bucket of gold from the current situation was to be with a wealthy woman. The young man was strong, and working hard to earn money was not a shame. Jiang Qin came to the reading area holding a stack of books, but before he could sit down, his gaze was suddenly drawn to the southeast corner. There sat a young girl wearing a waist-up long dress, with a small arm on the table that was fair and snowy. Her eyes were agile and watery under thick eyelashes, her red lips were pink and full, and her soft long hair draped over her shoulders, shining like a pearl under the sunlight. The girl was currently holding a thick book, carefully flipping through it, her gaze constantly flickering, serene and obedient. Jiang Qin was stunned for a moment, as if a related memory had been activated in her mind. Feng Nanshu, the goddess of learning girl in class 1 of senior high school, the silent flower of Jialing, and the true white moonlight of Chengnan High School. It is said that she is picked up and dropped off from school every day by a winged sedan, accompanied by a dedicated driver and bodyguard, and her family background is very mysterious. Some people say her father is a billionaire doing cross-border business, some say she is a princess exiled from the Beijing area, and some say she is an illegitimate daughter who cannot be seen in public. In short, there are all kinds of claims, but their credibility is very low. However, Feng Nanshu does have a wealthy temperament, with a cold and aloof personality. He has no friends and has never spoken to anyone except for answering questions in class. It is precisely because of her cold temperament of rejecting people thousands of miles away, coupled with the intimidating bodyguards, that although she has countless admirers, no one dares to confess to her. Chu Siki is already the youth of many people, but she still lags behind Feng Nanshu. After entering university, Jiang Qin had met many girls who could compete with Chu Siki, but Feng Nanshu still remembered those who would amaze him. Mr. Lu Sun really didn't deceive anyone, there is indeed a beauty like jade in the book. But was this sentence spoken by Lu Sun? Jiang Qin thought for a moment and felt that there was nothing to be said, unable to recall that the author's famous lines were all spoken by Lu Sun. At the same time, Feng Nanshu seemed to notice a gaze on him, so he raised his eyebrows and swept over lightly. At the moment of staring at Jiang Qin, her eyelashes trembled slightly, and she quickly refocused her gaze on the book in her hand. "It's really cold." Jiang Qin gave a fair evaluation, then walked over and sat at the table opposite her. Reading is a boring thing, and when you can't bear it, looking up at beautiful women is a good choice. Reading is for making money, and reading beautiful women is for reading. Ultimately, they are all tools and do not violate your principle of money first. Jiang Qin took out a book and placed it in front of him, his gaze casually shifting from the book in Feng Nanshu's hand, Magic-Eyed Girl Peggy Sue. Shouldn't a girl with such a high and cold temperament read novels like Kafka by the Sea, with a literary and youthful temperament? How do you read a fantasy adventure novel that leans towards a young age? Just as Jiang Qin was slightly stunned, the novel in front of him suddenly moved up. The half-face that was originally exposed was completely covered, not even the beautiful eyebrows and eyes were left for me. Jiang Qin regained consciousness and couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. Not even showing half a face. High cold, really high cold. Jiang Qin didn't care, but reached out and opened the book in front of him. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Finally meets the rich lady. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Finally meets the rich lady. Elder Tang returned from his pilgrimage and became popular throughout the country. Later, through someone's introduction, I met a 49-year-old female fairy from a wealthy family, but in the end, I hit the nail on the head and couldn't escape. Afterwards, Elder Tang did not choose to continue promoting Buddhism and resolutely got married, becoming a reckless son-in-law. Now, he sits on a street in the capital, in sharp contrast to his former Tang elder, who is still singing in his 60s. What is gorgeous transformation? This is the magnificent transformation. But how can we achieve such a magnificent transformation? The author listed several conditions in the book, and the most important one is appearance. To put it simply, being good-looking is the only way to have a good start with a wealthy woman. It's like knocking on the door, and if you can't even get in, there's no need to think too much about the things behind it. In addition, you also need to have a good body, be resistant to construction, withstand the happy nail and happy ball of rich women, and be as long-lasting as the Nanfu energy gathering ring, locking in more electricity. One cut is even stronger than 6 cuts. Of course, there is only the first half of the book, and the rest was analyzed by Jiang Qin himself. Jiang Qin looked deeply into it, but accidentally lifted his head and extended his foot a bit far. Coincidentally, he kicked the other side's scallion white jade run calf. After realizing his rude behavior, Jiang Qin immediately looked up at the other side. Unexpectedly, the cold girl quietly withdrew her legs as if nothing had happened, not even moving the book in front of her. "Sorry, I was too engrossed in reading just now, it wasn't intentional." "It's okay." The girl in front of him didn't take the book away, didn't look at him, only responded weakly and without any emotion. Jiang Qin didn't pay much attention, just refocused his gaze on the book. 20 minutes later, he saw the end page of the book, The Glorious Transformation of the Third-Generation Tang Monk, and gained some understanding of the basic routines of being a wealthy woman. But the question is where to find the rich woman. He just flipped through the entire bookshelf, but couldn't find the legendary book, National Rich Women's Contact Information. If you don't meet a wealthy woman, aren't these tricks just a waste of learning? Jiang Qin felt a bit disappointed and casually closed the book. After getting up, she pushed aside the stool and planned to walk out. At this moment, Feng Nanshu suddenly moved away from the book in front of him, looked at him with a pair of clear eyes, and then took the standing card on the right side of the desk and placed it in front of him. "Please put the borrowed books back in their original positions." Before leaving, Jiang Qin's gaze swept over the standing card, his shoulders slightly shrugged, and he silently left. Watching his distant figure, Feng Nanshu's eyelashes trembled slightly, and a hint of melancholy flashed in his eyes. However, she didn't speak, just silently put down her books and gently turned her footsteps across the table, putting away the books that Jiang Qin had opened one by one, intending to put them back in their original positions. Just as Feng Nanshu was packing up her last book, a sound of footsteps suddenly came from behind her, and Jiang Qin's voice also sounded. "I'm not planning to leave, I'm just thirsty. Go buy a bottle of water to drink. Also, I apologize for accidentally kicking you just now. Please have a drink as a gesture of apology." Jiang Qin twisted open the queer juice in his hand and pushed it to Feng Nanshu's hand. This drink was very popular back then, and Sprite was always his younger brother in front of him, but later on, for some unknown reason, he ended up drinking it. But Feng Nanshu didn't go to pick him up, his whole body froze in place like petrified, silent and motionless. Finally, she clenched her fist, lowered her head, and returned to her side, then raised the book high, covering her delicate face. Jiang Qin finds it quite inexplicable. "I didn't play a rogue just now, did I? What you do is basically considered a gentleman's move. Why does this flower of the mountain seem very nervous?" But he didn't think much, just felt that it was her cold and aloof nature that caused it, and then sat back in his seat to continue reading the next book. 3 minutes later, Jiang Qin's spare light caught a glimpse of a white and slender hand. It quietly reached out from behind the book, magic-eyed girl, grabbed the bottle of queer juice, and then quietly withdrew. In the following days, whenever Jiang Qin had time, he would come to the library and meet Feng Nanshu every time. The two of them were like a convention, sitting at the same table every time, facing each other, but neither of them spoke and only focused on reading their own books. But Jiang Qin never comes empty-handed. He sometimes brings some snacks, such as bear biscuits, salt and pepper crisps, and prawn cracker. He divides them into 2 portions and pushes the other one to Feng Nanshu. After 2 times, Feng Nanshu also started bringing some snacks over. Like macarons, truffle chocolates, Jenny cookies, and always placed closer to Jiang Qin's side. Although the two of them had no communication at all, they were able to interact with each other on their lips and tongue, which was quite a tacit understanding. During this period, Jiang Qin finished reading a book called The Rich Lady's Files and a book called Gentleman's Details, while Feng Nanshu finished reading a book called The Blue Dog Era and a book called Magic Zoo. June 13th, the 6th day of summer vacation. Jiang Qin closed the last book about wealthy women, placed his hand on the table, and supported his chin, his gaze gradually becoming deeper. In books, there is a golden house, and in books, there is a beauty as beautiful as jade. He searched online and found out that this sentence was not spoken by Mr. Lu Sun, but by Zhao Heng, the third emperor of the Song dynasty. The original text is called the "Encouragement to Study" section. But Jiang Qin felt that he was only half right. In the book, there are indeed beauties like jade, such as Feng Nanshu sitting across from him, who really looks beautiful and pleasing to the eye. But there was no golden house in the book, at least he couldn't find it. Jiang Qin can't help looking at Feng Nanshu, who is eating prawn cracker like a hamster. She no longer uses books to completely block her face, but the coldness in her eyes remains unchanged, and there is almost no desire to communicate. Wait, a black sedan with wings. Is there a dedicated driver to pick up and drop off students, and is there a security guard accompanying them? Macaron, Jenny cookies, truffle chocolate. Jiang Qin widened his eyes slightly and said to himself that his mind was simply teasing. He had been thinking about how to meet a rich woman, but he forgot that the one sitting in front of him was a rich woman. At the same time, Feng Nanshu suddenly noticed that Jiang Qin was looking at him, so he froze and slowly put the prawn cracker he had just picked up back into the packaging bag. I didn't say I wouldn't let you eat, let's keep eating. Oh. Feng Nanshu picked up prawn cracker again and put them into his mouth, but found that Jiang Qin was still staring at him, so his eyes began to become confused. Feng, can I borrow some money from you? Jiang Qin coughed, making her expression as sincere as possible. Feng Nanshu blinked in confusion, then fell silent for a moment. He took off the black leather bag hanging from the chair, took out a pink metal buckle wallet from inside, and slapped it straight on the table. Jiang Qin was completely taken aback, thinking that his demeanor was undoubtedly a wealthy woman, but the money he mentioned was not a few hundred, but a lot. I want to borrow more. How much can I borrow? Jiang Qin originally intended to say the exact number, but was very conflicted about how much to say. He felt that saying too much would be difficult for the other party, and saying too little was not enough. Okay, you can lend me as much as you have, but I will return it to you soon, and I will definitely not run away with the money. After thinking for a moment, Feng Nanshu nodded obediently and said, I understand. I'll get it for you tomorrow. Jiang Qin was once again messed up by her. When was borrowing money such a simple thing? Is it still the same world she was reborn in? I hope my comments section can be more active. I really don't want to be alone. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Don't spend money recklessly. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Don't spend money recklessly. The warm sunlight passed through the huge French window of the library and fell on Feng Nanshu's body, making her soft long hair and thick eyelashes as if plated with a layer of light gold. She sat upright, calm and obedient. Her slender fingers gripped a corner of the page and gently flipped through it, filling her agile eyes with purity. After reading this page, she pinched a piece of prawn cracker and ate it into her mouth, making a clicking sound, and then continued to turn to the next page. After several cycles, the packaging bag for prawn cracker gradually became empty. It wasn't until Feng Nanshu made another move that she realized this was already the last scene, so she looked up at Jiang Qin. I won't eat any more, you can eat all of it. Feng Nanshu's eyes flickered with joy, he picked up the last piece and ate it, then turned to the next page. Jiang Qin stared at her for a while, feeling that Feng Nanshu was indeed not joking with him. She really agreed to borrow money. But why does he have a sense of absurdity? Don't you need to make an IOU? If it's not going well, you should ask me what to do and when to repay the money. Jiang Qin has the soul of a 38-year-old uncle, a pure creature like a high school student. In theory, he should be able to see through it at a glance, but he really can't understand Feng Nanshu's operation. However, this is also normal. Before his rebirth, he had no contact with a wealthy woman, so it's not surprising that he can't understand. Perhaps wealthy women are like this. At 4:30 p.m., Feng Nanshu suddenly put the bookmark into the book, got up, smoothed the hem of his skirt, and put the book back on the bookshelf. She leaves on time every day at this time, and it seems that the access control is very strict. However, this time before leaving, Feng Nanshu paused for a moment and then turned around to wave goodbye to Jiang Qin. Isn't it that high and cold? Jiang Qin watched her leave, then turned to look out from the huge French window. Through the glass, he could clearly see the black Bentley parked downstairs. The driver, wearing white gloves, had already opened the car door and waited respectfully, while the bodyguard stood on the side of the door with a serious and alert expression. Feng Nanshu quietly walked out of the library and silently got into the car, disappearing into the streets before dusk with the roar of the engine. The Golden House and Yan Ryu are actually the same person. Suddenly feeling a bit hungry, let's go home first. Jiang Qin picked up the soft food guide and put it back on the bookshelf, rode back to Hongrong Homeland on Bayer Road, and bought a drawer of Xiaolongbao at the entrance of the community. Today is Wednesday, a working day. Ms. Yuan Yuqin is a staff member of the government hostel, while Mr. Jiang Zhenghong works in the health bureau, so there should be no one at home now, so we can only buy a Xiaolongbao to make do with it. However, after eating so much takeout and instant noodles in his past life, he is now no longer a vegetarian and has no excessive requirements for the quality of his meals. Moreover, the taste of this steamed bun shop is indeed good, with thin skin and large filling. 10 years later, even the branch store opened. Jiang Qin picked up a steamed bun from a plastic bag and took a bite. It was warm and oily, still the original recipe and familiar taste. It's just that the weather is too hot now, and eating too makes me sweat. Jiang Qin tied up the plastic bag and planned to eat it at home. At 7 o'clock in the evening, the night quietly surged up. Mr. Jiang Zhenghong returned home carrying 2 plastic bags, changed his slippers, and sat down on the sofa. His forehead was covered in beads of sweat, and he couldn't even breathe. He hurriedly shouted to Jiang Qin to pour him water. "Dad, where have you been? Why are you so tired? Your mother said the dishes at the Nansuan market are cheap. I rode my bike for 40 minutes and bought a bunch of things that you love to eat." Jiang Qin placed the water glass in front of him and said, "Isn't it just a few cents cheaper? It's not hard enough, is our family so poor?" Jiang Zhenghong took a sip of water and said with satisfaction, "This has nothing to do with poverty. You're going to college, and after that, you'll have to marry a wife. There will be more places to spend money in the future, so of course, you need to save where you can. You can't spend it recklessly anymore." As soon as the words fell, the doorknob creaked and the door was once again pushed open. Ms. Yuan Yuqin entered the door carrying a shopping bag from a department store, her expression overjoyed, and she was still humming a tune. Seeing this scene, the two of them couldn't help but glance at each other. "What did you buy?" "Our unit's Ms. Su said that the woolen coat in the department store is on sale at half price, which made me find a big bargain." Jiang Zhenghong widened his eyes and said, "Woolen coat. How much did you spend?" Ms. Yuan Yuqin showed a proud expression and said, "The original price was 888, but now it's only 488. Dad, is this what you said about not spending money recklessly?" Jiang Qin was shocked. "This spendthrift girl, it's dog days now. What kind of woolen coat are you buying? What do you know? If it weren't for the dog days, the price wouldn't have been reduced." Jiang Zhenghong put on the dignity of the head of the family, saying, "Jiang Qin has already completed the college entrance examination. After achieving his grades, he has to pay for both alcohol and tuition fees, and there are plenty of places to spend money." Yuan Yuqin changed her shoes and walked to the living room. "Isn't that my original words? Also, did you go to the Nansuan market?" "Of course I did. I calculated and found that the dishes at the Nansuan market are much cheaper than those at our downstairs salt shop. This time, we saved more than 20 yuan. So we saved 32 today. Jiang Qin's mind didn't turn for a while and said, where did that 300 come from? Ms. Yuan Yuqin picked up the shopping bag in her hand and said, I bought a coat for the original price of 888 with 488 yuan. Didn't I save another 300 yuan both inside and outside here? Yuqin, I have to talk about you now. Your consumption concept is clearly incorrect. Jiang Qin, I've been married to you for so many years and haven't bought any clothes. It's just a wool coat. Are you still talking about me? Jiang Qin watched happily from the side, feeling that this long-lost family dispute was very heartwarming. Dad is still in his prime, strong and not 53 years old with white hair, nor did he secretly drive Didi to faint in the car just to earn his down payment. My mother is still young and loves beauty. She has a little money in her hand and would go shopping in department stores. She doesn't even dare to buy meat because she saves money. This is definitely the happiest thing he feels after being reborn. However, it was too cheap for him to laugh while watching the play, and soon he brought disaster onto his own head, receiving unanimous disapproval from the couple. Jiang Qin, why are you laughing? Do you also think I shouldn't buy this wool coat? Jiang Qin restrained his smile and said, Mom, I want to make a lot of money in the future. I won't let you buy outdated discounted clothes anymore, and I won't let my dad go to that far vegetable market. Yuan Yuqin's expression was slightly stunned, and her gaze instantly softened. This is my good son, don't follow your father's example. He spends his days nitpicking and searching. Where did I pick and search? Jiang Qin's voice weakened a bit, indicating a lack of confidence. However, when he turned around, he found that his wife had already opened the shopping bag, which contained rolls of toilet paper. What is this? The inventory of the guesthouse was said to be replaced by the leader, so I took it back. Do you think you know how to be thrifty and frugal? Yuan Yuqin said angrily and turned into the kitchen. Jiang Qin was confused, and his heart said that you are fishing law enforcement. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Stealing my dad's money for you to spend. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Stealing my dad's money for you to spend. In the morning, the sunlight outside the window slanted on the head of the bed. Jiang Qin suddenly opened his eyes, opened the door, and ran to the toilet. However, after squatting on the toilet for 3 minutes, he stood up again in a daze, looking bewildered. Damn it, I've forgotten that I've been reborn, and the problem of having diarrhea when I wake up is long gone. But when I wake up, there is no reason to go back to sleep. Jiang Qin washed himself up, hung up the towel, went to the storage room downstairs and pushed out his bicycle, then went to the Jeju City Library. Upon arriving at the second floor of the library, he saw Feng Nanshu at a glance. This girl is wearing a black and white checkered skirt today, with long hair hanging down her waist and clear and transparent eyes. She is currently resting on her feet on the bookshelf, searching for books. This posture makes her slender waist straight and her body slightly forward, revealing her exquisite and graceful curves. What are you looking for? I want to read that book. Feng Nanshu turned his head to look at him, and his slender fingers pointed towards the row above. Jiang Qin walked over, helped her take down the book, handed it to her hand, and then the two of them returned to the familiar corner and sat in the familiar position. Then, Feng Nanshu opened his small leather bag, pulled out an Industrial and Commercial Bank of China card from inside, and slapped it straight in front of him. Here you are. To be honest, Jiang Qin himself feels a bit embarrassed. A 38-year-old uncle borrows money from an 18-year-old girl, it's only natural for him to feel embarrassed. In addition, the first thing Feng Nanshu did when she sat down was to take out the card, and she didn't even wait for him to ask, which indicates that she has always taken this matter to heart. This is somewhat touching. Jiang Qin picked up the bank card and pinched it with his fingertips, still feeling a bit unreal. Just stood there and borrowed the money. He still remembers when he was fired in 2016 for taking the blame. He borrowed money everywhere for rent and suffered a lot. Although it was not a psychological shadow, the feeling was definitely not good for him. Thank you. You are welcome. What is the password? 6/8. The bank card password of a wealthy person is really plain and unadorned. Jiang Qin put the card in his pocket and patted it twice, feeling the outline of the card through his pocket was enough to feel at ease. He originally wanted to ask how much money was inside, but hesitated several times and didn't feel embarrassed to speak because he always felt that asking such a question was a bit impolite and had a strong purpose. Forget it, let's take the amount. However, what is stored here should be the Mrs. New Year's money or pocket money, with a maximum of 80.90000 yuan, maybe even less. He plans to use this money to spend a month flipping around, see if it can double, and then buy an old and dilapidated house in a bustling area to earn a demolition fee. Then return the money to Feng Nanshu and see how much is left before starting the real entrepreneurial plan. Did you apply for a bank card so early? It's not mine, Feng Nanshu said calmly. Jiang Qin was supposed to casually ask, but when he heard the answer, he was momentarily stunned. Then he widened his eyes and said, "This card is not yours, whose card is that?" Feng Nanshu raised her clear eyes and said, "I stole from my dad." "Are you stealing your father's money for me to spend? Is that okay?" Feng Nanshu's expression was a bit confused, as if he was not sure if this was right or not, so he threw the problem to Jiang Qin. Jiang Qin was really messed up. What kind of relationship can make a girl steal her father's money for herself to spend? Boyfriend? Fiancé husband? He couldn't think of anything else besides these possibilities. But the key issue is that he and Feng Nanshu are really not familiar. Even his classmates are not in the same class. Although we have been reading books and eating snacks together these days, we haven't said much. This money is a bit hot. Jiang Qin hesitated repeatedly, but reluctantly took out the card from his pocket and returned it to Feng Nanshu. He is indeed very short of money because without it, he can't do anything, but bewitch inexperienced young girls to steal money from the family. Is this his mother human? You're not borrowing anymore. Feng Nanshu was a bit confused. I'm afraid you'll get scolded when you go home, so let's just forget about it. Feng Nanshu shook his head coldly and said, "No, my dad has a lot of cards, and he can't tell if he's missing one." Jiang Qin waved his hand and said, "If it were your money, I would borrow it, but taking it without asking is stealing. Will you return it?" "Of course it will be returned." "It's just borrowing," Feng Nanshu said confidently. Upon hearing this sentence, Jiang Qin hesitated. At this moment, there seemed to be a small person on his left shoulder, constantly urging him to accept it. Anyway, as long as he made up the money before being discovered, he wouldn't run away with the money. Jiang Qin, have you forgotten why you were so regretful in your past life? The rules of this world are like this. The brave starve to death. Besides, borrowing money is not stealing money, at least it is legitimate and has nothing to do with your own moral standards. Jiang Qin was convinced by himself, picked up the card again, and took Feng Nanshu to the bank. Because Feng Nanshu didn't know how much money was in it, it was really confusing, but Jiang Qin felt that since she was a creditor, it was necessary to know the specific amount. Speaking again, what exactly is this girl thinking? He is not afraid of lying to her. He said 50,000 for 100,000 and 30,000 for 50,000. He took out all the hidden amounts and made her cry without any place to cry. Upon checking at the bank, Jiang Qin realized that poverty really limited his imagination. His mother 50,000. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 The number of light points on this surface cannot be counted anymore. Jiang Qin widened his eyes and looked at Feng Nanshu incredulously, thinking to himself that you wealthy people really don't take money as money, do you? More than 6 million yuan is all put in one bank card, and the password is still 6 or 8. If it's lost, it won't be a big loss. And Feng Nanshu was also looking at the screen at this moment. After a while, she expressionlessly raised her hand and pointed to the string of numbers on the screen. Wow, you have a lot of money. What's going on? After returning from the bank, Jiang Qin sat at his desk in silence, feeling that today's experience was even more absurd than being reborn. But no matter what, the first bucket of gold was a perfect solution. He didn't even need to be so cautious about starting a business, he could just do it boldly. Buying old and dilapidated houses for demolition, making a profit, then investing in stocks, and then doing some business, entrepreneurship is simply not too simple. At this moment, Feng Nanshu suddenly put down the book in his hand and looked at him with clear eyes, as if he had something to say. Jiang Qin regained his composure and said, "What's wrong? I want to make friends with you, and I hope you don't disrespect me." Feng Nanshu's expression was very serious. What? Jiang Qin's face was full of question marks, and he couldn't quite figure out what the root was. But immediately, he read the title of the book he helped Feng Nanshu get. How to Make Good Friends Quickly and Effectively. Jiang Qin's mind froze for a moment, then glanced at Feng Nanshu, who was somewhat nervous, and then patted his forehead, feeling that the situation had suddenly become clear. Which bastard is spreading rumors that she is cold and aloof? This girl is clearly a natural addition to social anxiety. Actually, we are already friends. When can you take me out to play? End of this chapter.